Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to one of the biggest days of the year. It's that time. It's March Madness bracket predictions time. We're back at it again for another year of predictions. It should be fun this year. A lot of upsets, a lot of interesting categories. UConn getting probably the hardest. UConn probably getting the hardest section of games is very interesting. But yeah, we'll start off in the East with number one UConn probably being the best all around team in all of the nation, taking on Stetson. This is relatively simple. I'm going to take UConn here. Here, UConn, of course, the favorite to repeat, win it all. See if I predict them doing it. Next up, we got FAU taking on Northwestern. I'm gonna take FAU. They just went to the Final Four. They retained 8 players from that starting four lineup. This is still a good team. Yes, they didn't win the AAC, but this is still a team. Maybe a little, maybe should have been a little lower than 8, but still a very good team. And I think they will get the dub over Northwestern. Moving on, we have San Diego State taking on UAB, and I'm going to take San Diego State. I just don't see UAB that good of a team. San Diego State should advance. Next up, we got Auburn taking on Yale. I think Auburn won this game. Auburn, for the most part, they beat the teams that they are supposed to beat. This will be another one of those situations. They'll beat a team that is supposed to be in Yale, a team that just you lost to Brown, who is not good at all. Had to get a buzzer beater win. Auburn is better defensively, especially. Think they'll get the win. Next up, we got BYU taking on DeQuint. I'll take BYU winning this game. Their 3-point shooting is definitely going to be a big factor. I think a lot of teams could upset BYU if they're not knocking down the threes. But if they are knocking down the threes, they can beat a lot of teams. Next up, it's Illinois taking on Morehead State. I have to take Illinois, led by Terrence Shannon. Their offense has been great all year. Just saw them put up 93 points in the Big Ten title game. They have a great offense. We'll see what they can do with it. Next up, we got Washington State taking on Drake. A lot of people had Drake upsetting last year, but they ended up facing Miami. Bad draws. They ended up making it to the Final Four. They didn't end up winning. But this year, I think this is Drake's year to get the upset. They upset Washington State. Both of these teams are good teams. I think Drake comes out with a dub. And lastly, for the first round of the East, it's Iowa State versus Drake. And I'm gonna have to take Iowa State versus South Dakota State. I'm gonna have to take Iowa State, and they will play Drake. As we scroll back up to the second round, we'll start off with UConn and FAU. I'm gonna have to go with UConn. UConn is prop is the favorite to win, and even though FAU they retained all of their starters, they're just simply put not as good as UConn. They just don't match up. So I'm gonna have to take UConn. San Diego State versus Auburn. I think Auburn's defense is gonna win them this game. San Diego State also a little bit overrated as well. BYU versus Illinois. This could be a trap game. This could be an upset. This could be a game where BYU gets out and they start lighting it up from the three. This could be a game that BYU wins. They're physical on defense. They can shoot, but I can't see them taking this game. I'll have to go with Illinois. And then lastly, Drake versus Iowa State. I'm going to have to go with Iowa State. Moving on to the Sweet 16 for the East, UConn and Auburn. Auburn matches up really well against UConn. The problem with Auburn is that they don't beat good teams. And just because this is March Madness, that doesn't mean that just magically goes away. They don't beat good teams, and so I can't pick them to beat a good team in UConn, even though this is a team that matches up well against UConn. I can't take them. And then lastly, Illinois versus Iowa State. This is a very interesting team. Both of these teams are very, very good. Good Iowa State. They've got the great defense with a great guard tandem. Taking on Illinois, of course, with Terrence Shannon. We've seen how well they've been able to do. I'm going to take Iowa State to win this game. I just think their guard matchup is very good. It's going to match up very well against Illinois. And I'm going to take Iowa State to beat UConn. I think this is a team great on defense. They've got a lot of great role players. They're physical, they're quick, and I think this is a team just like Auburn that can match up well against UConn, and I'm gonna take them to beat UConn, and that will be our first team in the finals in the Final Four, the Iowa State Cyclones. Moving on to the South round, we'll start off with Houston Longwood. I think Houston wins this game. This pretty easy game. Longwood not a great 16 seed. Next up, we got Nebraska taking on Texas A&M. I'm gonna have to go with Texas A&M, one of the best rebounding teams in all of the nation. I think there was a stat that came out that said that Texas A&M was they rebounded on their misses 40% of the time. They're great. They're great rebounders. Nebraska, they're not great in my opinion. I mean, they can match up, but I just think Texas A&M matches better, especially with their shooting. Next up, we got Wisconsin taking on James Madison. I'm gonna have to go with James Madison. Wisconsin, they have been playing really well as of late after starting off kind of mid. They have played very well, but I just think James Madison, they started off 14-0. They got that big win against Michigan State. They only ended up losing 3 games. I think this is James Madison's year to make a run, and I think that they start with this win over Wisconsin. Next up, we got Duke versus Vermont. I don't really see Duke as this like such great of a team. They can't be eliminated. I don't see it like that. But I do see Duke beating Vermont. I just don't think Vermont stacks up enough in terms of talent to be able to beat Duke. Next up, we got Texas Tech taking on NC State. This is a very interesting game, of course. Texas Tech, the 6th seed, they're great defensively. They're great defensively as well. Taking on NC State. Now I have to go with Texas Tech. I feel like this is a game that a lot of people will inflate NC State's value just because of what they did, but I still think Texas Tech is a better team. They're better. I think they're going to be more well prepared. And for NC State, can they recover emotionally? They have to go through all that in the conference championship, and then now they have to go out and win during March Madness. Can they do that? We will see. But for now, I'm going to say no. We got Kentucky taking on Oakland. I think Kentucky wins this game. I think Kentucky can be a very scary 3 seed with their offense. If they can we know Kentucky's going to score 85 points at the minimum, but we know that they allow a lot of points. If they can just get the defense on track, kind of like how they played against Auburn. When they played against Auburn, they had lights out defense. If they can do that again, if they can replicate that, if they can play great defense, this could be a very scary team. Next up, we got Florida taking on either Boise State or Colorado. For one, I do think Colorado will beat Boise State, and I think this could be a very interesting game. Florida's big man is hurt. That was a crucial part for Florida, and because he's hurt now, I think Colorado takes the game over Florida. Actually, this is tough. 'Cause even though Colorado's a great team, gonna have to switch that. I'm gonna have to take Florida. I think Florida, they'll be able to prevail and get the dub. And then last up, it is Marquette taking on Western Kentucky. This is a game, especially without Tyler Kolek for Marquette. I could definitely see Marquette losing this game against Western Kentucky, but I will take Marquette in this game. We'll scroll back up. Houston and Texas A&M. This Texas A&M is definitely a team that could beat Houston. Texas A&M is a similar team in terms of play styles to Iowa State, but I'm gonna have to take Houston over Texas A&M. Next one, we got James Madison taking on Duke. Like I said, I think this is James Madison's year. I also am not that high on Duke. Seeing how they've played, I'm just not that high on them. They haven't been great this year at all. So I'm going to take James Madison to upset Duke. Scroll down to Texas versus Kentucky. This is the classic matchup of defense versus offense. But I think Kentucky's defense, they'll play just well enough to where their offense will be able to shine. Their defense will do well enough, and they'll propel them against Texas Tech. The last up, Florida and Marquette. And I think this game solely depends on if Marquette is able to have Tyler Kolek back. If Tyler Kolek doesn't play, I'm going to take Florida. I'm going to assume that Tyler Kolek isn't playing, and for that reason, I'm going to take Florida to win this game. We move on to the Sweet 16, where I'm going to have to take Houston over James Madison. I think James Madison, a very promising team, but I think this is where their Cinderella run, if you want to call it that, comes to an end. And Kentucky versus Florida, I'm going to have to take Kentucky to win this game. And actually, now that I start looking down here, Illinois versus Iowa State still very interesting. But in my when I kind of like skimmed through all my picks before this, I picked Illinois to beat Iowa State, and then to beat UConn. I kind of came back on that, and I might go back to that. Illinois' offense, especially with Terrence Shannon. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to that. We'll have Illinois winning, moving on to the Final Four and go with my gut because that's what you got to go with in March Madness. You could talk about all the analytical stuff, and it is very very good to look at that before you make your picks. But a lot of times you got to just go with your gut because of how unpredictable March Madness can be. That's what I'm going to do here with Illinois. And then lastly, Houston versus Kentucky. I've been very high on Kentucky all year with Dillingham, Shepard, Wagner, Reeves. I've been very high on them, and I think Kentucky, their offense, wins this game, and Kentucky moves on to the Final Four out of the southern part of the bracket. Move on to the Midwestern part. Purdue, they're gonna have to overcome their PTSD, if you want to call it that. Zach Edey's last run, and they'll have to start it by playing a 16 seed. And no matter who wins in the first four, I'm gonna have to take Purdue to win this game. Yeah, but next up we got Utah State taking on TCU. I think TCU is going to win this game. TCU is very quick. They're very fast moving. They're a great team. They can shoot. Shoot. Their defense isn't the greatest, but they're not a bad defensive team. So I'm gonna have to take TCU. And I know this is the very next game. This is the very kind of predicted upset, and we know those predicted upsets, especially in the 5-12 seed, usually don't go through. But I'm gonna have to take the I'm gonna have to take McNeese in this game. I think they're shooting. I think Will Wade, the coach, he's very good. I don't know why they let him go. I think he made it to March Madness, lost in the first round, and they let him go. He goes to McNeese. I think McNeese a very good team. This is a team that could make it to the Sweet 16. Sweet 16. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to take McNeese win this game. Next up is Kansas versus Samford, and this is another game in which I definitely think Samford could win this game. This could be another upset. Kansas, they've been very inconsistent. They're going to be without Hunter Dickinson yet again, but I am going to take Kansas to win this game. I just don't think Samford is all that good at all. So I'm going to have to take Samford. Samford to lose this game to Kansas. Next up, we got South Carolina taking on Oregon. This is a sneaky, very good game. This is another upset, in my opinion. I'm gonna have to take Oregon. I think Oregon they've caught their stride at the right moment, which is something that you need to be able to do. I don't think South Carolina is bad. I just think this is Oregon. This is gonna be Oregon's moment. I think Oregon's gonna take it. Next up, we got Creighton versus Akron. This is another not really interesting game. I do think Creighton is a week 3 seed, but I am going to take Creighton to beat Oregon. Next up, we got Texas versus, I think Colorado State will beat Virginia. So Texas versus Colorado State. This is an interesting game, but I think Texas does win it. And then St. Peter's versus Tennessee. St. Peter's is the 15th seed, playing another SEC team that's ranked 2. But I don't think Tennessee gets the win. I don't think St. Peter's gets the win. I think Tennessee gets the dub over St. Peter's and they move on. Next up, we got Purdue taking on TCU. This could be a sneaky, very good game, but I'm going to take Purdue to win this one. I think with Edey back, plus all the shooting that they have around him, they're going to be able to win this game. Next up, we got McNeese taking on Kansas, and I just can't trust Kansas enough. Hunter Dickinson still hurt. Like I said, they're very inconsistent. They've been very erratic this year. This just isn't the same great Kansas team that we've seen. So I'm going to have to take McNeese to get the upset over Kansas. Next up, we go to Oregon versus Creighton. I think Oregon is a very good 11 seed, and even though while they do get the win against South Carolina, I do think Creighton gets the dub over Oregon, and this could be another sneaky game too. I think this will be very close, but Tennessee gets the dub as we move to the Sweet 16. McNeese, they've made it all the way here. Can they beat Purdue? I think McNeese is great. They're shooting. Their defense has both been great. But I think this is where their run ends. I'm gonna have to take Purdue to move on to the Elite Eight, where I think they will play Tennessee. Tennessee, they can slow the game down. They can really play to their style of pace, which doesn't match up great for Creighton. And then for Purdue versus Tennessee, I'm going to have to take Tennessee. I think Purdue, they're a very complete team. They're a very good team. But I just don't think this will be the. This is actually tough. This is another one of those games where I picked Tennessee to win this game early. Do I really think two SEC teams make it? I think Purdue with Zach. I think Zach Edey, he's been great. I think Purdue, this might be kind of their bounce back year, kind of like how Virginia had it in, was it 2018, and then coming back in 2019 and winning it all. So I'm gonna switch that. I'm gonna take Purdue win this game, and Purdue will face Kentucky in Glendale, Arizona in the Final Four. Moving on to the western part of the bracket, we start off with North Carolina taking on the Howard or Wagner. No, I'm gonna have to take North Carolina to win this game. I don't think North Carolina is great. I could see them losing to a team like Mississippi State, who I do have them beating Michigan State because of their defense. But I definitely could see them losing to Mississippi State. I could see them losing to a team like New Mexico down here, to a team like Arizona, definitely to Arizona. Like, there are some teams that could definitely beat UNC, but I think NC gets this job done. Mississippi beats Michigan State. St. Mary's versus Grand Canyon. This is have I picked 3, 5, 12 games with a 12 seed wins? That's not great. But yeah, this is gonna be the third one. I think Grand Canyon, they are not a team to be messed around with. This is a very good team, very underrated team. So I'm gonna take Grand Canyon to beat St. Mary's. Next up, we got Alabama versus Charleston. I think Alabama will win this game. People are asking, why is Alabama 4 seed? They should be way lower. I will say it's definitely because of their non-conference schedule. They had a very difficult non-conference schedule, did Bama. So that's why they're the 4 seed. They've played well this year. They've kind of crumbled near the end of the season, but they've played well this year, and I think they get the win over Charleston. Clemson versus New Mexico. Clemson, they started off the year well. They've been on this. They started off the year kind of mid. They ended the season very good, and then now as of lately they've been on a skid, facing New Mexico State, who can shoot, and they've gotten hot at the right time. Going to take New Mexico to beat Clemson in another 6-11. Jeez, and another 6-11 upset. It's the same matchups too. 6-11, 5v12. Well, those are usually the more popular matchups in terms of 6v11, 5v12 for upset picks. Next up, we got Baylor taking on Colgate. I'm going to take Baylor to win this game. I haven't been a big fan of Baylor either this year, but I will take Baylor to get this dub. Dayton, I don't think Dayton's been that good. I've been very down on Dayton throughout this year. Nevada, I just don't see a way Nevada doesn't win this game. They come from the 10 seed. They get the dub. Then Arizona State, Long Beach State is actually a very good 15 seed. And if you put them against another 2 seed like Marquette, I think that could be a game where Long Beach State could have won, but I just think Arizona is too good. I'm going to take Arizona to beat Nevada. Moving on, we got UNC taking on Mississippi State. I think UNC is able to get the dub. Mississippi State, this will be a very close game. I think Mississippi State will keep it close. This will be a good game. But UNC, Bacon Davis, they'll be able to get the dub. GCU versus Grand Canyon. I love Alabama, favorite college here for them. Football, basketball. But I'm gonna have to take Grand Canyon, put my bias aside, and take Grand Canyon here. I just don't think Alabama, with the way they've been playing on a skid lately, I just don't think they're going to be able to get this game. Grand Canyon, they're going to be playing feisty with nothing to lose. I think they'll take Alabama, and they'll move on to the Sweet 16. And I've got another upset team making the Sweet 16 because I got New Mexico beating Baylor. I haven't been high on Baylor all year. I haven't think they've been as good as they were since 2020. They've kind of like steadily decreased. I'm not high on Baylor this year. I'm going to take New Mexico. Last but not least, I'm going to take Arizona and that offense to beat Nevada. Moving on to the Sweet 16, I'm going to take North Carolina. I think they'll beat Grand Can GCU, and they will end they'll end the Cinderella run. And I think the same thing will happen between New Mexico and Arizona. Arizona will end that run. And in the Elite Eight, probably the best Elite Eight game here, North Carolina and Arizona. This is going to be a great game, but I think in the end, the offense of Arizona, I think Arizona gets the job done. And now for the three biggest games here. We'll start off with, I think, the game that I've already kind of made my mind up on. And it is Illinois taking on Arizona. I think Illinois is a great team with Shannon. Shannon with that offense, but I have to take Arizona to win. I just think Arizona is the better team than Illinois. And for that reason, I'm going to have to take Arizona. And then we move over here. It's going to be Purdue taking on Kentucky. I'm really high on Kentucky. Before I recorded this, I had Kentucky winning the national championship game. I'm very high on Kentucky. But the problem is, I think this is where their defensive woes are going to hurt them. I think Zach Edey goes off. This is where their woes on defense are going to really hurt. Purdue wins. And then we have a Purdue versus Arizona national title game. And even though I haven't been high on Purdue as of late, I do think this is a game, Purdue and Arizona, where Purdue wins. And Purdue does win the national title game. Psych! No. Of course I'm not. I'm not taking Purdue. You really thought I was going to take Purdue? You really thought after what they did last year, after they shot the bed last year, that I was really going to take? I was really going to trust Purdue? You really thought? Hell no. Give me Kentucky to win this game, and then both these great offenses facing off in the national title game. I'm going to take Kentucky to win it all. I think their offense is just going to be too overpowering. There's going to be a very high scoring affair. I will say it's going to be close, 95 to 87. I don't feel like doing the math, so I'm going to just look that up very quickly. 95 plus 87 equals 182. So 182 points total will be scored. Sure, and they're both these sweepstakes, and that's it. Those are the predictions for March Madness, Kentucky. Oh, I'm not gonna fill this out on. I'm not gonna fill this out on video. That's not gonna happen. But yeah, that's the video, folks. Hope you had a good time watching. Hope this kind of was very informative. And I will see you in the next one. So, for Cat, peace out. See you in the next video.